We're happy to have you all.
Ready? Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome again. It's another episode of the Tobago Civil Net, another discussion that we're having with the candidates. I am Dr. Kern Johnson. I'm going to be your moderator for this evening. This evening, we have with us two candidates so far, Mr. Kwesi DesVignes from the People's National Movement and Mr. Trevor James from the PDP. We should have one more person joining us shortly, but as she joins us, I'll let you all know. So what we're going to do, of course, I'm sure if you have been tuning into us before, you already know that the Tobago Civil Net is a non-profit group of Tobago civil society organizations and concerned citizens, all combining forces for the purpose of having collective input into Tobago's development. Right? It's made up of stakeholders spanning different sectors in Tobago, and they all have the same collective purpose. The questions today were put together by the Tobago Civil Net and also from viewers who have been viewing previous programs and so on. So questions were put together and they will be fielded towards the candidate. Remember, this is not a partisan thing. I am here only in the capacity of as a moderator and that only. All right. So, gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right, it's good to have you all here. I know that you all are quite busy on the campaign trail, Mr. DesVignes and Mr. James, but it's good to have some time where you could sit with, just some regular dudes like, the Tobago Civil Net and give us some perspective and help us to better understand, because this is all about letting Tobago people learn, because from the past episodes that we've had, people have been learning a lot of information has been coming out. And so we're hoping that at the end of this, that learning can continue and people will continue to learn based on the discussions that we have. So let me ask you all we have about an hour and a half. So I know that some of the questions that we ask will have longer responses than you can give, but we prefer that the responses be very succinct and to the point. All right. So tell me, Mr. James, why did you get into politics?
I come from a family that has a long history of political involvement. Right. And as I looked at the Tobago landscape, I felt there was a need for someone with my particular expertise to join the fray, because I will add value that the THA never had before.
All right. Mr. DesVignes, same question to you.
My answer, I'm not sure I could be as succinct as Mr. James, but really and truly, just like Mr. James, I have a history in my family. I'm actually a third-generation member of the Tobago House of Assembly. My grandmother was an elected representative for Mariah Castara. My uncle was a councillor, minority councillor. Now myself, I'm here. I have a long history of serving in civil society, so I'm actually quite pleased to see this particular initiative. I think it's very refreshing to see civil society stepping up. For me personally, while active in civil society, I always had a particular desire to bring all sectors of society together, that being the civil society, public sector, and private sector, to achieve the development objectives of the society. Right. My journey wasn't a direct one, but I was asked to serve, and as usual, I said yes.
All right. For the both candidates, what are some of, we're just trying to get to know more about you, the candidate. What are some of your greatest fears and your challenges going into this new leaf of your life? Mr. Kwesi, as we're with you, we could start with you and go to Mr. James after.
There's a saying, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Really and truly, the greatest challenge, I always believe, and just as the greatest asset in any society, is human personality. And of course, as such, managing in Tobago in particular, we have very strong personalities. And when you go into the communities, you would get very diverse views, whether it's across lines or lines.
All right. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes. So I was saying, you tend to have different views, whether it's generational lines, party lines, or otherwise. And it's all for my personal ambition. For me, working within the community, it's always about how do you manage the different personalities. It's something that I have, a skill that I've developed over the years and continue to develop. So it's really about bringing out the greatest potential from within the human personality, the human spirit. And for me in Providence, Mason or Mariah, that will be my personal challenge. And I see that as probably the greatest challenge, because once we can realize our greatest potential, then the sky becomes the limit.
All right. Mr. James, over to you.
The greatest challenge I saw going into this new phase of my life.
Fears or challenges? Yeah.
Well, I don't have fears.
All right.
But challenge, I realized the PDP asked me to consider running a seat for them. And they decided to give me the opportunity to run one of the hardest seats. That is the seat that was formerly held by the former Chief Secretary. And so the challenge that I have is to, one, inspire non-voters to vote, because the seat has been won over the years on a minority 30% vote. And two, the challenge of inspiring PNM members to realize that their vote has been used against them to the benefit of the few. So that's the challenge that I have, and and therefore I have come up with solutions to overcome those challenges.
Thank you so much.
For me, therefore, fears are not part of my vocabulary.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. James. At this time, we want to welcome Miss Jamie Roberts. Good evening, Miss Roberts, and welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's actually Mrs. Jamie Roberts Beard.
Sorry, Mrs. Jamie.
So I need to make some changes with the name. That's all right.
Okay.
It's good to be here.
All right. So I'll ask you the same two questions that I asked the other two candidates. Firstly, why did you get into politics? And what are your fears or challenges going into this new phase of your life?
Well, I don't have fears. I don't operate on that paradigm. That's not a culture that we originally PDP. One of the reasons why I got involved is because we've seen that there's been a decline in leadership in our communities, in our families, in the homes. And I felt that it was important that Tobago sees a true reflection of who we are as a people, which is a people of integrity, a people of commitment. And it was important that I answered that call. And so that's why I joined. One of my greatest challenges, to be honest, was balancing being a mother, being a wife, and also being an entrepreneur, and balancing this new phase of my life. I am quite a jovial and spirited person, so meeting people was one of the greatest parts. But the challenge of it was that now we are placed in a position where we have to justify to the public that we are here to create change and that we are honest, because there has been a misrepresentation of persons in position, and there's a mindset that a politician is deceitful, and that there is dishonesty, and that it's pretentious, and that they make, erroneous pledges or promises as to what they will do. So here I'm placed in a position where I have to come honest and open to show my constituents who I am and what I bring to the table without blurring that, and so far so good. So I've stepped into the skill there a little bit, but so far so good.
Well,
yeah.
Actually, well, that's good, because the next question I was going to ask, so you started it off in a nice way there. So what makes you unique? What makes you unique, and what qualifies you to be a representative for your particular constituency? And after you will come to Mr. James and then to Mr. DesVignes. So we just want to keep the answers as succinct as possible, because we have a lot to get through, all right?
No problem. Personally, I am quite an open person.
Right.
And I've always been honest, and I've always been this type of person. So it was important. What was the question again?
What makes you unique, and what qualifies you to be a representative?
Yes. So I'm open, I'm straightforward, and that's what makes me unique. We are in a society where people are so closed and not open about who they are, and I know who I am. So that is what stands out. Also, my training, because of my training and my expertise in people, it has allowed me a more in-depth understanding of what is needed at this present moment. And what people need is a level of nurturing and inspiration, and the conversation and the narrative has to be different. And I think because I'm a team player and I believe so strongly in people, that at this very moment, this is what is needed from someone. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a professional. I've experienced Tobago from so many different spheres that it allows me this bird's eye view as to what is needed to create and to stimulate the change that we need, especially for young women. I'm a young mother, I'm married. So all of these things add to the scope, a measure of clarity, a measure of certainty, a measure of commitment that speaks through who I am.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
You're welcome.
Mr. James, over to you, sir.
What makes me unique?
Yes, what makes you unique, and what qualifies you to be a representative for your constituency?
Well, I believe that a representative has to balance, has to have the ability to represent the issues of the constituency. So that person has to be able to analyze, to be able to understand, to be able to meet people, to be able to treat with their issues, to be able to understand it and represent it. I think a representative also needs to have the expertise to manage not only the constituency, but to manage in the executive. And I have years of experience in the public service at various levels. I was a former director of settlements. I worked at Division of Works for years. I've managed several of my own companies. I've worked for consulting companies, large consulting companies. I've worked for contracting companies. So I bring, I think, an all-round understanding of business, of commerce, of management to the team. I consider myself to be the Andrew Russell of the PAP.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. DesVignes, over to you. I just want to remind all the persons who are viewing to share the live as much as possible so we could get the information getting out there to as much people as possible. Thank you. Mr. DesVignes? Unmute your mic, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. Really and truly, in terms of Providence, Mason, or Mariah, in the first instance, I'm in a unique position as I've lived in every single community within the electoral district. When I was born in Mason Hall. My family was living in Mason Hall at the time. I went to primary school. I started my primary school, my public schooling in Mason Hall. I lived in the Providence area for a while. And of course, my family from Mariah, I've lived in Mariah. So everywhere from Icacos Point to as far down as Providence Road, everyone in the community of Providence, Mason, or Mariah would know me from playing football with me, basketball, from in the community groups or so on, because that's just how it is. So it's very good, and that's why for the campaign it has just been simply Kwesi 2021, because most people know me as Kwesi and will continue to refer to me as Kwesi. As a professional, quite recently in the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment, I believe that I acquitted myself in a manner that most of Tobago can say they can be proud of. It was never a perfect journey, but people can be proud of these strides that the division made for the development of Tobago. I've been identified as a hard worker, innovative thinker, and of course, a compassionate leader. Someone who's able to bring different minds together to achieve a single goal. So having all of those talents and of course experience from the community level to the professional level, I think I become the ideal candidate. My experience in the public and private sector as well, having worked outside of the country in the tourism sector in particular. And then, again, I tell people I've worked from every level as a teacher, lecturer, as a bellboy in a hotel, scraping floors on a construction site. So I've done it all. So I understand the needs and realities of persons from every level in the society. So I think that diverse background, my involvement for the past 20 years in civil society as well, really puts me in a unique place when it comes to representation and understanding the needs of the people.
All right. Well, thank you again. So we seem to have a variety of candidates coming from different walks of life with various experiences with a lot to contribute. Just a reminder to our viewers that this is a production of Tobago Civil Net, which is a non-partisan group of Tobago civil society organizations and concerned citizens, all combining forces for the purpose of having the collective input of Tobago's development. So my next question would be, since you all have all of these different experiences and different training and so on, I would like to know, what is your specific vision for representation for your particular community? We could start with Mr. James.
When I accepted the nomination and was screened by the PDP, and I began driving around and walking the constituency before all this thing started. I was tasked with not only winning the seat, but like I said before, bringing a new inspirational campaign to Scarborough Color Hall. What I found in Scarborough Color Hall was a community that was left abandoned by those who were in charge. There were potholes everywhere, landslide everywhere, people complaining about drainage, people complaining about garbage collection and disposal. There was rampant unemployment in Scholar Hall and Glen Road and Darrow Spring. It just seemed as though the whole constituency was abandoned. And I therefore came up with a plan for every area of the constituency. My plan, I can just list a few of them because of your time constraints.
Sure.
Of course, the biggest plan that Tobago has seen on a political campaign was initiated by me, the plan to redefine the boundaries of Scarborough, to designate Scarborough into a city, to build a new multifunctional port that will cater for container arrivals, cruise ship arrivals, connectivity to the region, to improve the traffic plan in Scarborough, new roads in and out of the city, new parking spaces, new government offices. The whole plan is to me unseen ever in Tobago. Taking down all those crazy service lines all over the town where a container can't leave the port and drive through Scarborough. So I've done that plan for Scarborough, and the plan is hinged, of course, on retaking town country planning. Town country planning under the 5th schedule seemed to have been given up, not seem to. I went to a meeting as the president of the Tobago Contractors Association with the then chief secretary, to be told by him in the presence of the chief administrator and some of my people, that it's the boys in Trinidad who want town country planning back, so you have to give it back. So to take that back, to rebuild a new city, to create employment for the youths around the city, to me was the biggest plan certainly that I have seen on a campaign. Okay. We plan to roll out a new project called Show Me a Road Tobago, which really is the THA partnering with various communities to form them into cooperatives, to use the expertise of the Works Division to build out roads, minor roads in the villages, property access. We have an undulating land in Tobago, and people who are working in the THA for very low salaries cannot afford to build retaining walls and water courses and drains from all these hills and valleys that we have. If you go through, I spoke to a lady in Mason, for example, who said she cut
Mr. James, is it the areas that you're talking about, is it specific to your constituency in terms of representation?
to Kokowati.
Okay.
But Mason Hall, part of Mason Hall is in my constituency.
All right.
Very undulating hill and valley properties, river crossings. We have families in Kokowati across a river for the last 20 years. They can't get a bridge. It's like I said, the community of Scarborough Cold Hall has been abandoned.
Okay.
We looked at building out a sweet project, I call it, up at French Fort, lighting it with lights, connecting French Fort to Belmont, instituting the most strenuous 5K ever in the region. So I think that we have, certainly I have demonstrated to the people of Scarborough Cold Hall that I have the ability, the expertise to transform their lives. And that is what we will do.
Sounds quite transformative, Mr. James. Thank you for that presentation. Mr. DesVignes, over to you.
So, well, Mr. James went on for so long, I can't even recall what the question is anymore.
All right, the question is, what is your specific vision for representation in your particular constituency?
All right, well, thank you for that question, Dr. Johnson. I must say that my vision, first and foremost, is rooted in reality and the reality of the people on the ground. I have a favorite saying, vision without action is merely a daydream. Action without vision is a waste of time. And vision with action can transform the world. And everyone can have a vision, but it's really to put the action into it. And really and truly, it's about developing each community on key pillars, of course, identified from within the community. But first and foremost, I believe that we have to change the conversation and representation on what it is a representative brings to the table. The empowerment of the village councils is critical because I believe that most of the challenge or many of the challenges within the communities, once communities are empowered in a particular way, they can solve those very challenges. And as we speak, we have begun the process in Providence, Mason Hall, Mariah. We already have identified the location and we've begun discussions with the Runnymede Farmers Association to establish the first ever farmers market, because the area of Providence, Mason Hall, Mariah, of course, includes the Mesopotamia part of the valley, some very fertile land in Mason Hall, Mariah, and of course parts of Providence. So we are looking to develop the agricultural sector in a particular way and drive that. My background in tourism, I have a clear bias towards that as well, having studied tourism up to the master's level. So in terms of developing the tourism sector in the particular community is very critical. And again, as I emphasized before, my time in civil society means that I've recognized the worth of civil society and the power of civil society. In Rose Hill and Mason Hall, for well over 20 years, the people have been asking for a street light, and understanding the realities of what is happening in the Tobago House of Assembly in terms of the fiscal allocation, understanding how the process to get a street light, the Assembly has to pay for its installation, maintenance, and the light bill. We came together with a plan. I said, if everyone contributes $1 in the area, I will find the rest of the funding from private sources, and we did that. There's now a brand new solar street light built from a member of the community. So we are now looking at developing assets within the community, developing industry within the community, so that we can now start looking at exporting food from within Providence, Mason Hall, Mariah. I said to the people of Mason Hall time and time again, the only thing that we need to import into Mason Hall in terms of food after we are through with this development plan is kingfish and cavalli, because the reality is we don't have a beach in Mason Hall, but we are working assiduously already. We are getting the fishermen organized in a particular way in Mariah. They've looked past just fishing now into enterprise and tourism, and that process has already started. So I'm not speaking about any pipe dreams. We're speaking about things rooted in reality as we look to develop the community using the assets of the community. We have very good natural assets for tourism that we're going to be exploiting. Mariah is just on the edge of the brand new UNESCO Man in the Biosphere site. So it's a great opportunity for us. We fall within the buffer zone. So I'm looking at agriculture, tourism, fisheries, and of course, building the community groups, the village councils, the church groups, and so on, and empowering them so that we can start changing that conversation and become really suppliers and exporters from within the community.
All right, thank you, Mr. DesVignes. So you are building from developing innate resources within the community and taking that out. Thank you. Miss Jamie Roberts-Baird, over to you. Would you like me to repeat the question for you, or that's okay?
You can go ahead and repeat, that'll be fine.
Okay, what is your specific vision for representation for your particular district?
The reality is that we are a hurt, broken people. And because of that, the healing process is one that has to take the forefront. And my representation is centered on building the capacity of the persons that exist in our community so that we could then build our nation. The focus is also to engage and allow for that type of discourse where persons within the community have a say in what is happening and what is taking place, so that we could encourage a level of dependency, a level of patriotism, and a level of volunteerism as well. Because where we are poised at this position is that the economy and the world's economy is crashing. And because of that, we are placed in a position where we must look at our natural resources. We must look at what we have and what exists. We must look at our threats. We must look at our opportunities. And in doing so, we would be able to support and build a community. So for example, my focus in going out is recognizing that employment was an issue. And my position was that I do not need to wait until the 26th when I'm victorious to start working. So I started putting and implementing things, for example, we started doing a tour, a trail from the Buku Beach to the No Man's Land, which would add to the tourism product in Tobago and in Buku, which would allow for tour guides and that sort of stuff, as well as signage to educate the public about the importance of the wetlands. So we must also engage a level of education for the public that whatever we do, our public must be aware of the assets that is available. So there's always continuity, all right? We've also looked at community farms because we must be able to sustain our people. We must be able to have sustainable lives. And it must be one that is exemplary for the young ones that are coming up. It must be attractive. It must be something that reflects who we are. And it must be guided and guarded, as well as we must have a clear objective as to what we are trying to obtain. And I see myself as a facilitator. I see myself as the person that will create that sort of cohesion within the community by bringing a level of transparency, a level of love, honesty and openness, humility as well. And in engaging with the people, you get to recognize that there's so much expertise on the ground. So I actually see my task as not being as difficult because I am so confident about the people and their skill set. And so what really was lacking was just representation. So it's actually engaging, it's indulging. I mean, for example, Buku is such a beautiful place. And my husband and I started a business on Buku Beach. And the reason why we started the business on Buku Beach, because after my contract wasn't renewed while I was working at the Division of Health, I used that opportunity to reach out to the youth, reach out to the persons in the community to lead by example. Because here I am, I don't know anything about business, and I'm encouraging the young men to do business. And I'm like, that is so much hypocrisy. So we started our business, my husband and I, as a couple, to teach, to be examples, so that persons will know that you have to start at the bottom. And with commitment, there will be continuity, and the focus must be purpose. It mustn't be about just making money. We must develop a culture and narrative that speaks to inspire persons to live through purpose rather than just, running down this rat race with money and all this materialistic type of living. And so by doing that, we actually opened up the Buku Beach to the public. We actually made the Buku Beach a point a visit where they're now advertising at the airports to come to Buku Beach. We actually stimulated and asked other business persons to come and be part of it from the community. We asked the guys from the water park. So this is something that requires a lot of thought, a lot of commitment. It is not something that is going to happen overnight, but most important, it must be done by an example. And so when we open up the Buku Beach area, it also allows for the blue economy, the green economy. So that adds to the tourism product. So when the Buku facility and the goat race facility gets stimulated and we have things being done on a monthly basis and we're able to rebrand the product, we now have a conclusive product, something that we can add and add value. So Buku Beach will now be a therapeutic space, and it would not be something that would reflect what you will see everywhere else. It will be something that would be new. It will be branded as Tobago would be a place of healing. So it's no longer about clean, green, and serene. The world needs healing, and in order for that to happen, we have to heal as a people first. We need to know what we have first. We have to value who we are first. So the Tobagonian becomes the product. The tourism is the people is the product. And as I said, I value people, and I'm looking forward for us to just transform this place, because I have such talented young men on the beach that are ready and willing and just wearing their black. So guess what? Representation is real and it's honest, and that's who I am. I'm not hearing you, Kern. You're muted.
Oh, right.
Yes,
My apologies, right.
No problem.
Thank you for that passionate presentation. I could see.
Oh, you're more than welcome. That's good. That's good.
And I see you're looking from a transformative and a sustainable approach.
That's right.
So I thank you for that. Now, we're gonna go with you now. The next question, if you could identify, this is for all three candidates, the top 3 concerns in your district that you think needs to be addressed. We'll start with you, Ms. Jamie, and then to Mr. Trevor and Mr. DesVignes.
One of the things that I found is that there's a level of misrepresentation, a level of neglect and abandonment. We also have the issue of people being isolated or excluded from the national conversation. So I've found where, even amongst the youth, having conversations with random people, their communities isn't a reflection of who they are. And then we have the issue of infrastructure in terms of drainage and roads. A lot of persons in my district are actually marooned, especially like in the Canaan area, because we have issues of mosquitoes. So by 5:30 they have to be inside, and the reason why that happens is because all the water comes from the Mount Pleasant, Canby area and comes straight down to the Canaan Friendship area. So you find that persons aren't quite comfortable in their living arrangements. You have an issue where families don't have the ability to expand, so people living on top of each other. And so when you see things like that, it really propels you to want to be an agent of change, because you see the desire from people to really do better for themselves, but they're not given the opportunity, they're excluded. So I can list about 15, but I'll just give you those 3 for now.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. James?
You're welcome.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, sorry.
I would want you to let me go after Mr. DesVignes once tonight. However, like I said earlier, the challenges of the people, what I found is that the basic amenities have not been met.
Yeah.
The representatives of the past have, in my word, abandoned them. We have, from my data, 50% on the whole and so on. 50% of them are unemployed. We have property access across Kokowati, Cradley, issues where people just don't have the finances to, they're built on these slopes, but they don't have the finances to access the property properly, to control the water, to build the roads up and down these hills. We have the issue of the whole farm in Belmont 95% of it unproductive. For years, again, they have been abandoned. I went into Cradley, for example. They have about 30 houses down in there. No garbage truck comes in. Garbage truck passes along the main road. The contract for the garbage apparently is for them to pass on the main road, and people have to walk the garbage out to the road and dump it on the side of the road. So everywhere I looked, garbage all over Darrell Spring. Everywhere I looked in that constituency, it's a constituency that has been abandoned, and there's need for representation, that just basic representation. And so I'm there to do that.
All right. So your biggest thing is representation.
Correct.
All right. Mr. DesVignes, sir, over to you.
We're speaking about the top 3 things for the electoral district, you think?
Correct. The top 3 concerns or challenges. Well, yeah, in your electoral district.
Well, I wonder if you're still talking about Tobago. But really and truly, as I indicated previously, really and few things right. The first thing is, how do we change the conversation and representation? We're hearing about many initiatives that people want to do, many things that people want to get addressed. But again, the capacity is right there within the community. And it requires a type of conversation that drives people towards realizing that they are the true force of change within their communities and within themselves, within the Mariah area and even in Providence. In Mariah in particular, we already formed an NGO, and we were able to build already 7 or 8 community bins in the community. And this is using voluntary labor, materials, and so on. So it means that we can solve the issues of garbage collection again, or the area to store garbage within ourselves. And we've seen it done in other places, Castara, Fairbanks, and so on, even in DesVignes Road. The other thing is the empowering of the community groups, the village council. I mean, I've served on the village council. I know that some persons who have put themselves forward have never really set foot in the village council before. But having served at the village council level, I understand the talent pool that lays sometimes dormant within communities. And I really want to tap into that latent talent and potential. And that is going to be one of the things. One of the challenges within communities we have recognized is that there's always a village dynamics, and within communities, there are sub-communities. So to address that, we are going to have what we call block committees with management teams within them, so that although Kokowati, for example, as Mr. James spoke to there, might fall within Mason Hall, the people of Kokowati can get together in their own group or block committee, so that they can now go into the village council to make representation. Because the reality is, no matter how many great plans or vision, great ideas that we have, we still operate within the reality of limited physical resources, economic resources, and sometimes even leadership capacity, as we're hearing tonight. So what we have to get into is truly empowering people, building capacity within the community groups. As a matter of fact, there's a group of young men on Broad Road, and they said they're fed up of a particular politician always passing by and dropping off rum for them. They don't want any more alcohol. They're not alcoholics. I was able to speak to a landowner in the area, and we're already looking to build a particular enterprise. We have a space of land that is now allocated for them to establish a business. So it's really about utilizing the capacity within the community. The fact is, the PNM's administration has delivered a lot of infrastructure and will continue to deliver infrastructure, because development is a continuous journey. And for communities like, I think, Boku, where there's a wealth of physical infrastructure, including the goat racing facility, health center, the school, the community center, and now part of the Southwest wastewater treatment. What we have to look at are what other opportunities there are. And it's almost unfortunate, and again, that we are trying to now discuss tourism, when we had a fantastic opportunity, I think, for all of Tobago, for sandals. The farmers in my community always talk about it. The fact that we have lost out on a fantastic opportunity in the Indian Walk Estate. There were guys that were putting in extra crop, identifying new lands to get onto. Even in Belmont Farm Road, some of the farmers there, the livestock farmers as well, complained to me about that we lost out on a fantastic opportunity with sandals.
But Kwesi, could I
speaking about that?
Kwesi, could I ask you to just get back into the specific
yeah, so we're talking about agriculture here specifically.
Okay, agriculture. All right.
That's why I spoke to agriculture specifically, that we've lost out on an opportunity, but we are forming new opportunities because, again, changing conversation and representation. It's about how do we identify opportunities that can be exploited. Because although some people might say that they want a job or a work, and what they're really looking for is a way to provide for themselves or their families. And it's not just telling people, well, don't worry, I will find a work for you, or promise I will raise your pay when I get into power. It's really about saying, listen, all right, what are your skills? And that's the first question I ask these guys. So what skills do you have? To let them, stand on guard immediately, to start looking at how can you develop yourself first, and then start developing and exploiting the many opportunities that are out there. So really and truly, it's identifying opportunities, exploiting opportunities in the tourism sector, in the agricultural sector, and in fisheries.
Right. Well, it's fitting that the next question only started with Kwesi, since the next question is dealing with infrastructure, and it deals specifically with it deals with public spending and people's perception of public spending. So there has been a lot of spending taking place, a lot of physical infrastructure taking place in different parts of Tobago, and a lot of persons, they have a lot of concerns about the spending. I don't know if those concerns are because they aren't, there are a lot of questions that are unanswered. So what I really want to get from you is, do you think that anything is wrong with the way the current executive is going about spending money? And if not, what do you think can be done to improve that? All right, so Mr. DesVignes, we're going to do that, then Mr. James, and then Miss Jimmy after.
Well, that's an interesting question, because I don't know that the other two panelists are qualified to speak on
that's all right. That's all right, Mr. DesVignes. They are getting the questions.
Yeah, the reality of the question is and from Charlottesville to Crown Point, we are seeing the results of the policies, plans, and of course the implementation of those plans of the PNM-led Tobago Executive Council, the THA Executive Council. As a matter of fact, I think no more than ever, there's a level of transparency that the people have become accustomed to in the way that we do things. In the development projects, I could say under my tenure as the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment, we have realized almost, I think, close to $80 to $100 million in savings. And that is from engineers' estimates. And again, it's because we are a lot more robust as we develop. We are actually ahead of the national game in terms of the public procurement. We have adopted a lot of those the regulations, although they have not been proclaimed as yet. So we operate as if they're proclaimed. So as a matter of fact, there's even greater transparency, and the people of Tobago are always comfortable. I remember when we were doing the rehabilitation of the Claude Noel Highway, there were some persons saying, but why are we spending so much on a paving project? And when we explained in detail, because of course, there are some chair critics, as we call them, or experts who would say, well, that's too much money. But we explained that it was a rehabilitation where we took the Claude Noel Highway for the first time right back down to the foundation, rehabilitated parts of the foundation, strengthened it with new technology, the tensor mats, and we were able to build all the way back up. We included three new filter lanes, etc., the guardrails, and people were satisfied that it was money well spent. A similar thing happened with the Thompson River Bridge, the Lambo River Bridge. We are now working on the re-engineering and redesigning of the Turpin Bend, the double bend in Charlottesville, and the villagers were so pleased to see the renders and the rendering and the work that we are putting in, because it's not just about saying that I have a plan and then you go and fool people into believing that you can do it, but it's about having a plan, working the plan, getting the necessary expertise on board, and executing accordingly. I remember even the unemployment relief program, when I just got into office, we made some changes and persons were asking, so what are we spending the money on? And we were able to account to the people of Tobago, and persons felt so comfortable when the administrator sat next to me and identified every single line item, where the funding was being spent and so on. So I think on the contrary, there's a lot more comfort in the way that we are executing projects. People have been seeing bang for their buck. If you look at the transformation of Roxborough, for example, we are seeing a complete transformation. We are seeing the transformation of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited, the rehabilitation of the Barbados Bay Jetty, and the works continue. And I think now people have a greater sense of comfort knowing that it's not, we are actually holding everyone to the highest level of accountability in terms of our procurement practices. And we continue to deliver to the people of Tobago because we can see the delivery. We just opened the Roxborough Hospital. In our tenure, we've opened the Charlottesville Micro Mall. We're about to open Adventia.
All right. All right, Kwesi. I know you could go on and on, but I just want you to comment on.
There's so much that we have done as an assembly.
All right. But I want you to comment on the parts where it says, what do you think can be done to improve public spending?
I think there are always ways to improve, and I'll tell you when I say that the digitization of the public service, I think, is one thing that I think can definitely improve how we spend. And I will tell you why. I think by being more efficient always, we can always optimize on how we utilize our resources. And one of the plans that the PNM has is the digitization of the public service, and we've already started that. We have already passed the policy paper for the Public Service Academy for Tobago, and we are rolling those things out. We know that we have the ministry responsible for digitization. And
I may have to cut you a little bit short, sorry about that, but I'm looking at the time. And we need to get the others to give some comments as well. Mr. James, over to you, sir, please. Do you remember the question? You want me to repeat it?
Dr. Johnson, I counted the time. Mr. DesVignes took 5.5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I hope you'll allow me the same time.
Sure. I try to as much as possible. Sure.
Firstly, the question is whether we understand how public procurement has been working in the THA and what can be done to improve it. Did I understand the question correctly?
Public procurement, it asked about the spending and what can be done to improve it. Yes. Yeah. And
my good colleague there went on and on about a lot of craziness to try to sell to you. I mean, you did not stop him. So I'm going to put the record straight.
Okay.
In 20 years, the administration under the PNM has not built 10 miles of road in Tobago. They've attempted to pursue agricultural roads in the last 4 years. They have spent above $80 million on roadways that produce zero agriculture. No products have come out of the roads they have built. It's an attempt to transfer monies to friends, nothing else. The projects are not, that project of agricultural roads have not been tied to any production. In 20 years, they have built 425 houses in Tobago at an astronomical cost of above $1.5 million per house. In 20 years, they have produced 165 lots, service lots in Tobago, still to be given out at a mad price of $856,000 per lot, lots that are below 5,000 square feet. So when you speak about how monies are spent and the THA's supposed desire to contract anybody to do anything, there is a need for the revamping of every and the investigation into every single project that has been executed. Mr. DesVignes talks about Thompson Bridge. It took them almost 10 years 4 of which a crane sat on that bridge, paid for by the THA, to come and claim victory that the bridge was done. That is not how you spend public funds. It took them almost 4 years to build a market at $36 million. I believe on this panel, I have the right to speak because I am the construction professional. And that market, from all my quantity surveying partners, because I have the BOQ, could not cost more than $10 million. So let us be clear in Tobago in what we are telling the public. The reality is that every single project, I could go on and on with projects. In Castara, fisherman facility started in 2012. Contract given, awarded, however you put it, to a guy who was a P&M senator who became a representative last in this cycle for $7 million. A design bill where he's doing the design, and the price escalates to above $14 million. This is not joke money we're talking about. The Cove project started at less than $100 million, ended up to be close to $1 billion. This is public procurement under the THA P&M. The THA P&M in the last 4 years has been more corrupt than the UNC in the last 5 years and the P&M in Trinidad. And the cultural complex, public money, again, spent by this P&M government, started out at less than 200 million, ended up to be $1 billion. Incompetence and thieving to the highest in Tobago. While in Trinidad, Patrick Manning is able to build Napa and Sapa together as one contract for less than $1 billion. Let us understand what we are talking about. When people come on the program and talk about building community councils, and this, we have been at this for 20 years, you know, fellas. 20 years we've been at this. You cannot come now and tell the people that you now want to reorganize village councils. I was vice president of Signal Village Council, if he doesn't know. We in Tobago have been party to, in some cases, the biggest heist of public funds ever seen in the entire region. This is the PNM that comes today in the person of Kwesi DesVignes to say this kind of madness tonight.
Mr. James, Mr. James, 1 minute, Mr. James. We're not having any personal attacks here.
No, I'm not attacking. I'm not attacking.
Hold on, Mr. James. Give me a minute, please. Right? I would like, even though there is the political tension and persons may be emotionally involved, we are not here to attack anybody, but we are here to try to answer the questions as much as possible, and to try to keep from the personal attacks, please, as much as possible.
I can withdraw humbly, kindly that last part, and I can apologize to you and Mr. David. Right. However, we must be clear in Tobago. After all of this time, we cannot allow representatives to come to us and talk about doing basic things in communities as if they are new. That is what opposition people do. You cannot come after this amount of time and say that you're going to build agriculture after you've bought 20 estates and all of them are abandoned, still nothing being produced. You cannot come and say that you're going to build agriculture when we have 600 acres in Hope Farm, unproductive in forest, in Goldsboro. You cannot come and say that to the people in Tobago now.
But Mr. James, specific to the question that was asked, which was the perception, because I gave you the 5 minutes that you asked for, and I wanted you to identify specifically, well, I'm guessing from what you're saying that you are not pleased with the spending of THA, right? And that is your opinion, and you are free. That's fine. That's fine. Just now, Mr. James, just now. You are free to express that. What I want you to address to me is the other part of the question, which is, what do you think can be done to improve the spending, right? And
well, I think first off, We need to change the crew in the assembly. That's the first thing.
All right.
I do not think that there's been any demonstration of an understanding of how procurement should work. I mean, we are sitting here while an airport project is going. I'm just telling you, an airport project is going on now, but it has been tendered twice and one respondent, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago still goes ahead with it with no competition. Tendered twice. Let us understand when people say that they are adopting white paper policies as though it was already assented to, nothing is further from the truth. Nothing is further from the truth. What needs to happen? Let me answer the question. What needs to happen? Because I may be ranting a bit, but what needs to happen,
right,
is that the laws of Trinidad and Tobago be followed.
Okay.
And if they are not followed, people should pay the consequences for it. That's what needs to happen. You cannot allow Tobagonians, you cannot allow our monies that are given to us to be spirited away, and then to come and ask me to buy paper for my child in school, and to ask me to build garbage bins for my community, when in fact unspent balances are in the hundreds of millions. Can't do that. Something is wrong in the current THA that, to me, it is so broken that they cannot fix it. We need a new group of Tobagonians to fix it.
Thank you, Mr. James.
To change. A change of administration is the only thing that can repair the damage that has been caused and perpetrated in Tobago by this crew of persons.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. I understand your passion, and I feel it. I feel it. Ms. Jimmy Roberts, over to you, please. Do you like me to repeat the question, or you have?
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Right. So we just want to know what you think about the spending of the THA, and what do you think can be done to improve it?
Well, there's a lack of accountability, and again, with my colleague, there is a procedure, there's a procurement process that needs to be followed. And so long as that is followed, then you allow the law to steer the course of action. I don't have to be involved in that nature of work to see that there's discrepancies, because when you look at the type of infrastructure that we are seeing, you're seeing a lot of milk cart boxes all over Tobago, and there's no real creativity, there's no real continuity. The infrastructure doesn't speak to any level of futuristic approach to it. For example, I'm living in Buku, and currently we have a project being done at the boardwalk. And this project has been ongoing for the past 3 years. A simple 30-feet boardwalk have been done, ripped up, cast again, ripped up, and now they're on the third attempt to create a 30-foot platform. And we are in 2021, and when you look at the infrastructure, it lacks innovation, it lacks any sort of, it doesn't add anything to the space. And then you see where there's unaccounted spending, because now you have the reality of wastage in terms of material, in terms of labor, and that is coming out of our pockets. We are the taxpayers, and in fact the monies that is being exploited along is actually our inheritance that we're throwing away. So I don't need to have expertise in infrastructure to see, because I'm a citizen first, and you're recognizing that the infrastructure is poorly done. Most times, even the tiles aren't appropriate. When you look at the the community centers, for example, the outside space is pitch. There isn't any natural creativity. It doesn't reflect the community. It doesn't reflect the purpose of what it should be. And there's so much that we could go on and talk about. So, I mean, when we see people clamoring about success over things that are just done mediocre, it means to me that there's a lack of consistency, there's a lack of drive, there's a lack of capacity to really rise to the occasion, So So yeah.
And what do you think can be done to improve that?
To be honest, I think that because of the status quo and because of the existence of who've been there for so long, the best thing would be for a new entity to come on board. Because I believe, after being in a situation for so long, I think people get burnt out. I think people lack vision. I think that they might not, understand the importance of reaching out to the community. So that would be that in everything we do, it must reflect the community. It must reflect the ideas and thoughts of the persons that are going to experience it and benefit from it. So for example, the sign in Scarborough, I Love Tobago, had that been done in a way where the community or Tobagonians were involved with what the design would have been, it would have had a greater effect. Then we would have been able to connect with the infrastructure. Then we would have been able to equate with what is the message that is being sent, because it would have been a reflection of all rather than some. And so, so for me, I see a lot of laziness, there's a lot of laziness. So we need to stimulate and activate and generate a kind of movement and traction in terms of innovation and, yeah.
All right, good. Thank you, Ms. Beard. I just want to remind the viewers to share the live and to remind you that this is a production of Tobago Civil Net, which is a non-partisan group that is filled with stakeholders who are focused on the development of Tobago. We are just about 1 hour into tonight's proceedings, and we have about half an hour again. The next set of questions are questions that were sent in specifically to the candidates representing the different parties. So we have some questions that are sent for the PNM and some questions that were sent for the PDP. And for those of you listening, these questions were put together by the Tobago Civil Net, and persons who are viewing and listening online, they sent in their questions, right? So for the PDP candidates, the first question I want to ask you is, what do you think about the incumbent party, given its long history in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Now, we have half an hour to answer all the questions and to wrap up. I am sorry, I know that these things usually are very short on time, but I want you to give us a very succinct and pointed answer to these questions. All right, and since we have two persons representing the PDP, maybe you could probably share the responses so we aren't here for too long. So Ms. James, we'll start with you.
With me?
Yes, sorry, I meant to say Ms. Jamie. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah.
Question again?
What do you think about the incumbent party's history, the long history in Trinidad and Tobago?
Oh my goodness. I think that they have created a stain, meaning that I haven't really seen a real reflection of change. In fact, if I'm really honest, and I prefer to be honest, and that's why I hesitate, because I'm so honest. But the reality is I'm seeing where there's a philosophy that is ingrained with a slavery mentality, a slavery philosophy. And my issue is that the party doesn't reflect an organization allows its members to grow and to really contribute. It seems as if there is this overarching body that supersedes the majority, and that the persons that hold position are just placeholders. And I see that when there's inconsistency with what the product or the outcome of what we get and what they sell. And for me, there's a level of commitment to inferiority that exists, and for me it's a challenge, especially since I've witnessed it, I've participated in it, and for that reason it's something that we in Tobago have to stand up against and fight against, because it sets a really poor example for the next generation. And in terms of politics and in terms of the involvement of the nation in getting involved and participating in the democratic right, that has been erased from the conversation. And it has enshrined this hate and discrimination and separation, because the conversation always permeates division as opposed to inclusion. And when you look at the act and when you look at the type of governance that permeates from the organization, it is clear, because I'm a citizen and I've tried on many occasions to share my opinion, and you find that you're being attacked. You find that persons come all in your inbox asking you to remove where your thoughts. And so when you see that type of management and that type of management of behavior is being done, it says to me that there's a ingrained philosophy that eliminates the intuition of people. So that's my response.
Thank you, Ms. Jeannie. Mr. James?
Well,
Just repeat the question so I can be more concise.
Sure. What do you think about the incumbent party given its history in Trinidad and Tobago?
My first interaction with the incumbent party was when I was a child of 5 or 6 years. Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the most honorable father of the nation, Dr. Eric Williams, came to my village in Bell Garden to meet with Dr. Morgan Job's mother. And he gave a little speech in a street we call Job Street. One of the things he said was that Tobagonians, you don't have to plant another garden. I am going to give you a work. And they started Dude in Tobago. My second interaction with the PNM government is when I was attending Scarborough Secondary School. And ANR had just won the 2 seats in Tobago. And no member of my family that worked for the Tobago, those days, the what we were calling the county council in Tobago, got paid for 4 months because Dr. Williams decided that he was not going to pay Tobagonians to punish us because we voted for the DAC. And I couldn't go to school for 2 of those 4 months because there was no money to pay the taxi driver that took me to school from Bell Garden to Scarborough. So my impressions and my are based on my formative experiences with the PN.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
I'm not. You want me
sorry.
to stop?
I want you to wrap it up because we have about 18 minutes again, and we have a lot more to get through still.
And so I want to tell Tobagonians that the organization called the PNN that produced comments like Dog Pond, that evidence suggests had prior knowledge of the coup is not Tobagonian. The organization that is the PNM is not Tobagonian. It is not Tobago-centric, and I reject them out of hand. And I want to encourage Tobagonians to be of that mindset, because otherwise we are going to be dominated, and the 6 trillion identified liters of gas in fields that BHP and Shell now identify in Tobago waters clearly are going to be used against us to enslave us by the PN.
Okay, Mr. James, thank you. Mr. DesVignes, I'll ask you the same thing about the other party. I think it's only fair. So what are your perceptions, or what are your thoughts on the PDP? Your mic is muted, Mr. DesVignes.
You know, before getting into politics, I really stood on the outskirts for a while and analyzed the situation. And I remember someone saying to me a while back that in Tobago in particular, and in Trinidad and Tobago, that it's PNM and then there's the rest. The unfortunate reality, I think, of the PDP is that the PDP was once the DAC and the NAR and Tough Duck and forwards, and today it's the PDP, and tomorrow I don't know what they will be. I think that our principles are rooted in sand and will be washed away. I think that it's an erratic party similar to their leadership style. And it's unfortunate that I think that some young persons who I consider to be intellectuals and having the ability to contribute to the development of Tobago have chosen to align themselves with an organization such as that. I think in our system of governance, we definitely need that bipartisan style of governance, which is of course the government and the opposition, which is Westminster style. But I don't know that the PDP is even fit to be in the opposition. Hopefully that after January 25th, when the PNM is successful yet again, and there's an overwhelming majority of Tobagonians validating the PNM, that many of the young persons who are now within the fold of the PDP or whatever they want to call themselves at that point in time will truly introspect and reassess their position and find a way to do the work to develop an organization that can stand the test of the time, similar to the PNM, because the PNM is not where it is by chance, not by happenstance, but by truly being a movement of the people that starts from the ground up. And I think our success of 65 years speaks to that.
All right, thank you, Mr. DesVignes. So the next question that I'll ask Mr. James and Miss Jamie. I'll ask for 2 minutes each from the responses, because we want to wrap up at 9:30, right? What evidence do you have that Tobagonians are ready to put more support behind the PDP? Mr. James, over to you. 2 minutes.
Well, from my walkabouts, there's clearly a massive swing taking place.
Mm-hmm.
I think the evidence I have suggests that rank and file senior members of the PNM now realize that they have been disenfranchised and are possibly unwilling to vote or to support the PDP. The young people that I continue to meet in my district, for sure, have given me the assurance that there is no future for them in the PNM and that they will vote for the people. So for me, the evidence I have is clear and convincing. There is a movement away from the PNM towards the PDP and towards Tobago.
Okay. Ms. Jamie Roberts, over to you.
I share the same type of experience. I mean, being on the ground, and I've always been that type of person on the ground, and the type of conversation that we've been having, I think because it's a breath of fresh air, the persons that are really, pledging their support are actually persons that have not participated in the process for quite some time. And in fact, they have said to me that they have been waiting for someone that they could really depend on, someone that was speaking a different language. And so at this very point in time, what we bring to the table is actually what people need, which is a level of independence. And in my community in particular, there has been a lot of neglect for our young men. And considering that, the person that holds the seat is a young man himself, the disappointment and the clamoring is real. And so as a female, I am now poised in the position to be a nurturer, to build them up and lift them up. So I think at this point in time, it is so succinct and so real that the connection is real and it's undeniable. And you just have to speak the truth. And the truth is people want different, people want more. People want real, and I think I bring that to the table. And on the 25th, persons will come out and they would show their support because it's something that they're desperate for.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jamie Roberts.
You're welcome.
Mr. DesVignes, the question that is specific to you is, what indicates that people support you for who you are outside of your affiliation to the People's National Movement?
Well, a couple of things. Thanks for that question again, Dr. Johnson. First and foremost, in terms of the evidence you spoke to previously, The NACTA poll, of course, indicates that we are firmly set in the Providence, Mason, or Mariah area to begin with. Secondly, based on some of the areas that may have been called stronghold areas for the opposition, we have been able to get in there, and there are some people who literally say, I am not a PNM, I'm supporting you. And they're willing to work with me because they know me, whether they played football with me, basketball, whether I sponsored a tablet for the child before, or something for the school, whatever it is. People are saying that they're willing to work with me. They've seen progress. They realize that I'm a man of my word and that I tend to deliver. And we have seen that through the length and breadth of the communities of Providence, Mason, and Mariah. And on election day, the numbers will tell that particular story, that the people of Providence, Mason, and Mariah are fully in support of Kwesi DesVignes, fully in support of the People's National Movement.
All right. Wow, so many questions and so little time. Okay, I'm going to ask 2 questions. I would like each of the PDP candidates to take one of the questions. But Mr. DesVignes, you just have to answer the both of them, all right? All right, so the first question is, with this election period, we have a lot of music trucks going around the place, and we have children at home who are trying to do the online learning, and some parents or even teachers are complaining about it and saying that it's affecting their ability to teach and to communicate effectively with the children. What are your thoughts on that? That is one question, so I don't know which one is going to take it. And the next question is, with the argument that it is better to have a PNM in Tobago and a PNM in Trinidad, what are your thoughts on this? Right? So I don't know which one.
I'll take the second one.
You'll take the second one. Okay, so Mr. Jimmy Roberts, you're at 9:17, so it had to be really brief, all right? So Ms. Jamie Beard, over to you.
All right, no problem.
Your mic is muted, Jimmy, sorry.
Our mandate during this period, we had a mandate set out to all our trucks where at 3 o'clock is where actually they would start to play music after the school program. And in the communities, they are only allowed to play voiceovers at a lower rate so that we make sure that the children have the ability to function and cope. So we have put things in place, and even there were times where persons might have acted out of the accordance. We would have had to put things in place to ensure that they maintain that order. Because I too am a mother. I have a daughter who's 9 years old and she's in standard 3. And so I'm very familiar with the issue. And so we dealt with that. We structured our campaign because at the end of the day, we want to build families, not break families. And so that's how we dealt with that. The other side, however, I think that because of the competitiveness, you find that you have a lot of music trucks entering consistently, right, all on the highway, from in the morning till in the night, you're hearing it is the PNM, But I've always maintained the position that is not how you win an election. You stay on the ground, you have conversations with your people. So that was the priority for me, and making sure that the message is clear.
All right, Mr. DesVignes, you could respond to that question as well.
I thank you. The reality is, Dr. Johnson, of course, we live in new times. COVID-19 is a reality. Online schooling is now part of our reality as well. And I think as the policymakers in government, we have realized our responsibility to the people of Tobago. And we've had to, obviously, just as anyone else, adjust our strategies. We've actually put the instruction out to have messages played briefly, or so I should say at a lower volume, at different locations, as opposed to playing music during the day at loud volumes. As a matter of fact, we've gone as far as to fire persons or take anyone off the rotation who is breaking up or contravening that particular rule. So I think we have been able to restrict that. What we also encourage is, if anyone hears a truck that is going outside of that, let us know the number plates and we'll deal with the person. So I don't think it's fair or real to say, or honest to say, that we have been over exuberant in any kind of way. We have been extremely responsible, and we continue to do so, because we know that come January 26, we have the responsibility to continue governing Tobago. We have to govern a Tobago where our students, our children are our top priority.
All right. Thank you, Mr. DesVignes. Mr. James? Your mic is muted, Mr. James.
All right. Just repeat the question for me.
Right. So there is the argument that having the same political party in the national cabinet and THA is often more effective to getting things done rather than having different parties. How do you respond to that argument?
Well, fortunately, we have evidence. Robinson and Murray went to Trinidad with 2 seats and got us the THA Act. PNM in Tobago for 20 years, PNM in Trinidad for 15 years, zero movement on that continuum of self-determination. Portray Charles went to court against the UNC and got 4.03 to 6.909% of the national budget. PNM in Tobago, PNM in Trinidad, no movement on increased budgetary allocation. As a matter of fact, the PNM in Trinidad for 15 years has given Tobago exactly 4.03, and in 2 years, less than 4.03. So the UNC, in their 5 years in that time, gave Tobago 4.03 as well. So on the push for autonomy, on budgetary allocation, no movement. Those are the 2 biggest issues that Tobago faces. So there has been no benefit. What we have had, unfortunately, is PNM in Trinidad supporting corruption in Tobago and not forcing the THA in Tobago to account for expenditure. That's what we have had. And we'll make it short and stop there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. James. Mr. DesVignes, how do you respond to the same question?
Well, I respond with a recommendation first and foremost to the Tobago CivilNet. Again, I think this is a fantastic initiative. Civil society is where we continue to operate. And I think having a fact check operation running in the background may be very useful to the development of this program, so that you don't have persons coming onto the program and trying to mislead the public in any kind of way. In terms of, if you were to speak to the issue of autonomy or Tobago self-government, the fact that Mr. Robinson and Dr. Murray were able to go to Trinidad and work with the PNM government to ensure that we had the THA Act of 1980, even though Mr. Robinson left the parliament at the point in time, says very clearly that the PNM cares about Tobago and the autonomy issue. The fact that we were able to reject a forced opportunity, and just to add to that, the Dispute Resolution Commission under the THA Act of 1996 is not necessarily court, but it's a mechanism set up to deal with the allocation. So it's clearly outlined there. Although Mr. Kwesi Charles did represent Tobago at the point in time. In terms of the movement of the current autonomy bill, we saw that this PNM administration was able to protect Tobagonians from a green paper that was destined to jettison and to emasculate Tobago, the THA's authority. And as a matter of fact, after the most widespread consultation, several hundred hours, oral papers, written submissions, and so on, we were able to produce the Tobago Autonomy Bill for self-government that is now before a Joint Select Committee of Parliament. So I think the PNM has definitely shown its commitment to the cause. In terms of PNM in Trinidad, PNM in Tobago, we have seen where, and I could go back as far as 2002 or 3, it was when we were able to secure Pigeon Point Estate. Pigeon Point Heritage Park for the people of Tobago without even having the necessary funding. We got the support from the Patrick Manning government to get that done. And again, even the introduction of the fast ferries was something led by the PNM in Tobago and supported by the PNM in Trinidad. We have if you fast forward now, where we've just completed the Roxborough Hospital, the administrative complex, the APT James is on our shores. We are seeing the collaboration of PNM in Tobago and PNM in Trinidad. Earlier in the program, Mr. James spoke to the fact that the tender for the airport went out on 2 occasions. As a matter of fact, in 2010, the tender went out under Patrick Manning. And when the People's Partnership, the handlers of the PDP, came into power, they jettisoned that particular tender. They also jettisoned they stopped the Chauvin and Roxborough police stations, which have now been built because of the collaboration of the PNM in central government and the PNM in the Tobago House of Assembly. We are pushing ahead with the new airport terminal, again, because of the collaboration of the PNM in Trinidad and the PNM in Tobago. So I think the evidence is clear that it's working for the people of Tobago and will continue to work for the people of Tobago after January 25th.
All right, Mr. DesVignes, thank you for that. Ms. Roberts, we have a question for you, specifically for you from Facebook person, and that question is, Ms. Baird, Coral Garden has a lot of young men between the ages of 15 to 24. What plans do you have for them to keep them active and away from crime?
We do have a diverse group of young men. For those that would have just, completed school, we're looking at using them as tutors, participating with families that are having difficulties with young children, coping with the Zoom program. We're also looking at having community farms. So the community farms will also be another area where they will be able to engage, develop skills. We're looking at building a skill bank. And when I say a skill bank, separate from just like electrical and plumbing and that sort of stuff, we're also looking at developing the capacity to respond in the event of any kind of natural disaster. We're looking at life skills. We're looking at volunteerism, community spirit. So the engagement of each project will allow for them to blossom, for them to grow, for them to be leaders. We also have the beach facility, where we would also be engaging with community projects there as well, with the tour guiding. So it's important to teach them and nurture them about the resources that are available there and in terms of building their capacity. So that's the angle that we are looking at based on our conversations. They are excited about being part of the agriculture program. They're excited about the conversation about generational wealth. We're also looking at an alternative, like for example, the forex trading, because a lot of these young men have grown up in the era of computers, and so they're quite comfortable with that type of setting. So we're looking at alternatives of income and looking at educating them in that sort of way. We're also looking at literacy programs. We're also looking at having programs for young men where we can have issues being raised. We're talking about sexuality. We're talking about masturbation. We're talking about simple things about starting a business, connecting with stakeholders in the community to share the expertise with these young men in terms of starting up their business, partnering with them. So we have so much things that we are discussing. But the reality is they would be the ones engineering the process. We also have the boating industry that is in Buku. So we have a lot of young men interested. A lot of them already know how to build boats. We have young skilled men as well in terms of in the fishing industry, in terms of sailing. So now we have the capacity, and now they're going to have representation that will be able to draw from their strengths, draw on their interests, and build them to become whole individuals. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Baird Roberts. Quickly wrapping up here. So this question is to each one of you. How often and with what methods will you give account to your constituents on your stewardship as their representative? How often and what methods will you use to give account to your constituents about your stewardship as their representative. Mr. Robert, since we are with you, we'll continue with you, then to Mr. James and Mr. James.
But the center of my stewardship or my leadership would be the people. The heart of it is the people and representing the people. And so my focus is to have town meetings or meetings where we will have discussion about the challenges, the issues. We will prioritize. They will prioritize what our focus should be. And in doing so, me being part of the executive arm, I would be there to give them the checks and balances that this is the monies that we have allocated, and so that they will decide how the spending will be done. So allowing that level of independency for my constituency would allow for me now to be the one that would be somewhat bringing, the checks and balances. I would have no choice but to bring the checks and balances because of the design of how I intend to represent. And so I can't just come with talk or empty promises. I have to come with statements suggesting that this is what we have available. We have said that this is our priority. Therefore, we choose that we're going to go forward this project. It's going to cost $500,000. I'm going to ensure that they are aware of what they're getting, because the projects would be centered around the communities. They would be the ones that will be participating even in the labor. And so it is important that there's value for dollar, and the persons that are participating understands exactly what they're getting themselves into. So that's how I intend to do things.
Thank you, Ms. Jimmy. Mrs. Jimmy, my apologies. Mr. Trevor James, over to you, sir.
January 26th.
Excuse me?
From January 26th.
Yes, sir.
When I have been declared the victor of Scarborough as a whole.
Right.
I will lay out an entire new structure of governance in the district. We are going to have community councils, leading up to village councils. We intend to pay these leaders a stipend and to have official community council meetings every 3 months. So we will have one per quarter, and out of those, a meeting will be held between those leaders and the representative. And from there, we can decide how we go forward to represent the people once and for all. No more will we have members of the House holding keys to centers and madness of that nature. Those days will be done.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. James. Mr. DesVignes, over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. I think I would have alluded to it earlier in terms of building from the blocks right up. The reality is having, again, functioning in the village council. Anyone who functions there knows that we don't always get maximum involvement at the village council level. So we have to get people, meet people where they are, and that's part of the plan. We've already started mobilizing these types of setups already in different parts of the electoral district. So the idea, yet again, just to repeat very quickly, is to get people organized into block committees almost, or it might be street or area committees with management committees at the helm, that then these management committees work within the village councils. It would be a scary day for me when we start paying village council members a stipend, because the spirit of volunteerism, investment in the development of your community should be paramount. And we don't want to lose that by trying to throw a stipend at it. Yes, it can be arduous work, but it also leads to development. And I think by providing more development opportunities for the members of the village council, as opposed to paying them, they will feel rewarded for their stewardship. So by getting to them at each of the grassroots levels, similar to the structure of the PNM, where we first have the party groups, then we have the constituency groups, then we have the Tobago Council. That is the type of arrangement that we want to have, where we build from the basic cells all the way up, so that there's a level of accountability that people can be comfortable with. And as well, really and truly directing representation, because a representative should not necessarily speak on his own behalf, his or her own behalf, but really the voice of the people, and getting that type of feedback is important.
All right. Thank you, Mr. DesVignes. Well, Mr. DesVignes, we have a question for you one time, actually. Somebody wants to know, what are your plans for the youths in your district? This is a question coming from a Facebook comment.
All right. Thanks for the question. I think there are many plans, and I've spoken to the guys on the block already, and I've spoken to it in part here. It's really about identifying opportunities. I spent a lot of time as a lecturer, Arthur Lock Jack, THTI, as a high school teacher, and I've always had the opportunity to guide young people. And I've always spoken to the identification and exploitation of opportunities, and education being a gateway for that. Education is not only in the formal sense that we think of it, but also, for example, I've been speaking with a couple butchers, and I asked them, where did you learn your trade? And they said, well, my grandfather was a butcher or so on. So they never formally got it. They learned the trade, they were never certified. And what I want to do is bring in the type of training to build that capacity within the community. And it's really about identifying and pointing them in the right direction. A group of young men in the net trace met with me. Again, they wanted jobs. But at the end of the meeting, we were able to agree that they're all building their own homes and into construction. So I've already brought in someone to consult with them to form their own company. I have someone who's going to work with them to provide the back-end support. So they are now forming themselves into a small enterprise construction company. And we've spoken about developing 2,000 house service lots, and of course, ensuring that we engage small and medium enterprise or small and medium contractors to help build those homes. So those are some of the opportunities through agriculture, through building capacity and entrepreneurship that we are looking towards.
All right. So we quickly looking to wrap up. Before we wrap, I just want to ask another question here. Do you think assemblymen should focus on representing their constituents and allow professionals specialized in respective fields to lead divisions? I will start with Mr. James on this one.
Mr. Johnson, like I said, you continue to have Mr. DesVignes go last, but that's all right.
No. Let me explain the order. Let me explain the order on my screen.
I'm answering you.
All right, sir. All right, sir. Go ahead.
That was my forward.
All right, fair enough. Go ahead, sir.
The structure that we currently have will not permit that. So the idea of whether that is someone's thought does not arise. Our structure is, as designed by our Constitution, does not allow us to behave as though we are in the States. And therefore, representatives must be able to function both as secretaries if they are in the executive council and as representatives of the people. If you cannot do both jobs satisfactorily, then you ought not to put yourself up for service. End of the day, this is about your ability to manage your time and to meet the needs of your people and to meet the needs of your division if you are so fortunate to have that position.
Thank you so much, Mr.
I am certain that I am aptly empowered to do such.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. James. Now, I was explaining that there is an order of how you are laid out on my laptop screen. So I just go randomly in that order, down and back up. So it's not specific to any person. All right. Mrs. Jimmy Roberts.
So this will be twice Kwesi's going last. But go ahead.
Well, it's unfortunate that we only have one PNM candidate and two PDP candidates, but that is how it is for now.
All right. No worries.
What's the question?
Right. The question was, do you think assemblymen should focus on representing their constituents and allow professionals specialized in respective fields to lead the divisions?
Because of the type of representation we have had, it would appear that it's impossible to really reach and support your communities and exist as an executive entity. And I think that is so because there's a ploy in the political game and scheme of things where the focus was rather about just getting the vote to hold office. But when you have an entity whose focus is to build the capacity of the people, then the response as an executive arm will be a reflection of the people. And it makes it even easier to deliver because on the ground level, on a community level, you are engaging the people, you are endorsing and encouraging that level of independency. And with time, what that allows us to do by creating the arms of the community. So for example, the village councils being controlled by the community and not by political assault, and the community groups being independent, and the persons that are engaged, they have the capacity to run these entities, then we, the representatives, would not even have the challenge of getting things done in the community and holding office as an executive arm, because we have now allowed our people to rise to the occasion. So then our focus on policy and instrumenting that, getting that change will be a reflection of that cohesion with the community and the position that we hold. So if it is the incumbents, however, if I'm to look at it from that point of view, I would think that they may need to have someone operating independently and professionally, because there's a blow for them, because I live in a constituency and I've never seen my representative. I've never seen any real change in my community because the focus was to hold office and to take pictures. And so when we enter, we have learned from their mistakes. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the opportunity to watch and learn so that we don't make the same mistakes that they have done. And so now they have to sit back and watch and learn from us. That's just the cycle.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jimmy Beard.
You're welcome.
Mr. DesVignes, over to you, sir.
I think this question is one that...
You want me to repeat the question? Oh, okay, all right.
Because very often we tend to look towards the American model of democracy, when in fact we mirror the Westminster system. This question actually was posed to the people of Tobago previously, when we came up with the Tobago Autonomy Bill, when we had those consultations. And at the end, the consensus was that we will continue with a situation where we have assemblymen who are elected, and then the chief secretary decides to appoint these assemblymen to secretarial positions or not in some cases. I'm very comfortable with the arrangement as it is. It comes down to a level of professionalism, commitment, and we have seen that time and time again from the PNM representatives. Of course, even at the national level, it continues to be where MPs are also ministers, and they have a lot larger geographical spaces to govern over. So it comes down to managing time, talent, and so on. I think you are, well, as a secretary, you are allowed to have at least one advisor. So bringing on technical capacity is important, and we've seen that being done. And it doesn't necessarily, to be the Secretary of Infrastructure, for example, I did not necessarily have qualifications in engineering, and I won't go about touting myself as a construction specialist or expert. However, it's safe to say that I've acquitted myself well, and the people of Tobago have voiced their opinion that the division has been run extremely well over the last 4 years. And I've done it because I've applied the concepts of effective leadership to the position. I've taken good and sound technical advice, and we're seeing it even now from the Secretary of Health, Tracy Davidson Celestin, how the way we've managed COVID-19. And it really comes down to having a particular plan that is well thought out, having the technical support, and really being committed to getting the job done. And we've seen that time and time again from the People's National Movement, the representatives, and the fact that we are in office for 20 years, and we're going to probably be in office for another, come January 25th, be given the mandate for yet another 4 years, speaks to the fact that Tobagonians, by and large, are satisfied with the type of representation that they've been offered.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. DesVignes. Now it's time to wrap We have come to the end of tonight's show, and we want to thank you all once again for coming out. We thank all the PDP candidates and the PNM candidate for coming, for spending that time with us, because we know you could be out in a political meeting right now. But we thank you, because what happens here with the Tobago Civil Net is we speak with the candidates and a lot of viewers learn. Every single episode we have, viewers learn. And it's that forum where we allow persons to speak freely, but not to be bashing persons, but to speak from the heart and attempt to educate persons out there who aren't sure about how things goes. Right. So as we wrap, I'm just going to give you all 2 minutes to wrap up quickly. So start with Miss Jamie, Mrs. Jamie. Your mic is muted, Miss Jamie.
Yeah, what exactly you wanted us to
Anything, your closing thoughts? Your closing thoughts.
It has been quite an honor to participate in this process. It's something that I've never seen myself doing. I've always said before that I don't like politics. I don't like politics. I'm not a politician. And in this process, I've learned to even change that terminology, because it allows us the opportunity to transform and create change. And I've now learned the importance of the opposition as well, and what values it brings to an island, that change of mindset and that objectivity. And we must never take that for granted ever again. It's been an honor meeting persons within my constituency. It's been an honor to have real meaningful conversation. It's been so stimulating, reaching persons that are so willing to volunteer and participate and be part of this transformation that we're speaking about. It's intoxicating. And to be honest, my focus is to be genuine and to be honest, and that I must never lose who I am. At the end of this, I must become a better person. And the persons that I work around, they too must become better people. So in my campaign, it has always been centered on love, because it allows for us to be sensitive to others and to build rather than to destroy. I love Tobago, and I'm looking forward to what we have in store. And I'm hoping that persons will trust themselves, because voting for us is you trusting yourself, because we are just like you. Citizens that have participated, have seen and decided to be part of the change, be part of the transformation. So I wish you all the best. I love you, Tobago. Continue to strive for excellence, and know that you have a team of persons that acknowledge that they have weaknesses, and acknowledge that they also have strengths, and is willing to work along hand in hand with you. And we are going to make each other better. We are not there to pet and pamper each other. It's not about a friendship. It's not about the status quo. It is really about generational wealth and transforming Tobago, so that we will be poised in a position to really make change to the world. I'm seeing it. All you need to visualize it, because it is there. It is there. Just vote wisely, and it will come to fruition. Love you guys.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Jimmy Bear Roberts.
Keep smiling. I have you smiling broad every time, Kern. So you can imagine me as an area rep. Oh my goodness. I would just be stimulating people like that. I love it.
Right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jimmy Bear Roberts.
You're welcome, darling.
Over to Mr. James.
As expected, Mr. DesVignes will go last, but that's fine. My closing thoughts. That actually wasn't funny, but my closing thoughts are, I want to make an appeal to the 50% of those of us out there who have lost interest in the electoral process. I suspect that the interest has been lost because of the example and the actions of the incumbents over the years. And I want to make a special appeal to those people to come out and make a choice this election. This election is about starting the process of Tobago taking charge of itself once again. We must begin to dream all over. Without a dream, a country dies. Do not take the examples that you have from the incumbents that say that for some reason our plans are pie in the sky. At the very least, the PDP has presented a vision for Tobago that is unparalleled in the history of the politics in Tobago. And for those who believe that it cannot be achieved, I want to say to you that BHP Billiton and Shell together have told us that there are 6 trillion cubic liters of gas in our waters. The gas that is there, that the PNM in Trinidad refuses to make sure that we are, as Dr. Rowley said in his preamble to the same bill that is being spoken about that has gone before the JSC today. In his preamble, he says that from the information sent to him by the THA, that Tobago has identified 4 areas that is important to them. 2 of those areas are that Tobago wants a federal arrangement with Trinidad, and Tobago wants to be separate, to be identified and defined by the median line between Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the 2 critical areas which those in Port of Spain refuse to include in the bill that is before the GSC. And this election is about Tobago taking the first step in controlling and building our own destiny, and not be allowed to have some foreigner from Trinidad determine for us where and how we go. So when you go to vote this election, vote for Tobago once more.
Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you so much for your contributions. We really appreciate them. Over to you, Mr. DesVignes.
Again, I just want to thank the Tobago Civil Net for this opportunity. I think the continuous education of Tobago and Tobagonians is critical. And I want to encourage that this program continues well beyond the election period, well beyond when some of the passions that we have seen ignited are a bit settled. Again, my improvement to the program will be some fact checking, so that the education that goes out there is education that is facts that are real and not alternative. I really want to thank the people of Tobago and even the people of Providence, Mr. Mariah, let me start there, for their support so far. I've always pledged to continue working with the people of Providence, Mr. Mariah. I've worked with them prior to getting into politics, and I will continue to working long after. I've pledged to be the person that walks the talk, and that is part of my commitment as I move forward with the people of Providence, Mr. Mariah. One of the defining things and one of the key differences I have recognized between the PDP and the PNM, in the PNM, because we have been in power and we've been able to consult and understand the needs of Tobagonians, we have been able to present a manifesto that is grounded in reality, one that is in touch with the needs of the people, and that is of the people and for the people. It was not a one-man show to develop any type of development plan. It was a lot of consultation, widespread consultation, and it is built on the economic and social realities of what we are facing on the island. The Tobago Autonomy Bill is a high priority for us that we will continue to pursue. I've had the opportunity to sit as part of the forum of political parties. They sit before the JSC, and I've seen some of the challenges that we face. And of course, the bill cannot pass with the PNM only. We need opposition support. So I'll continue to ask the PDP to speak to the UNC friends to ensure that they support the bill and stop trying to slow the bill down at the JSC level.
We don't do that here. We're not really attacking. Let's just keep it organic.
and erroneous fact.
Let's keep it organic.
Do not mislead the Tobago population, please. Do not mislead.
If you have friends, you have friends. I have friends in the PNM government, and that's a reality.
Dr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
I said, autonomy continues to be a priority.
If I were to come and say, not a joke, maybe a strategy, not a joke.
Mr. James, I'll wait until
1 minute, Mr. James. Let me allow Kwesi to finish, and I'll let you say what you're saying after, please. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. DesVignes.
Thank you so much for your intervention, moderator. So as I said, it's a high priority for us, the autonomy bill. Development, as we have said, is a continuous journey. And I think where some gaps maybe have been identified, we can say that we have gone such a long distance to provide lit sporting facilities, community facilities, and so on. And we will continue to develop and bring Tobagonians to a place where they are more than comfortable and feel that there are many more opportunities available to them to really and truly lead their lives in a way that they're comfortable. I am very sure that the people will continue to place their confidence in the People's National Movement, in the vision that we have presented to them, because it is part of their vision, and they will support the PNM led by Tracy Davidson Celestin to be, who's going to be the next Chief Secretary, to ensure that we continue driving the development of Tobago and building Tobago together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. DesVignes. Mr. James, you were saying something?
Dr. Johnson,
yes, sir.
This is the challenge that I saw from early on in this program. However, it has come to an end. But let me say this, that if I were to come on your program, and I thank you for the opportunity and for PDP choosing me to be on tonight. If I were to come on your program and I were to say that I want the PNM to ask their financiers from Diego Martin and West Trinidad for permission to speak, it will not be appreciated.
Well, Mr. James,
Tobago knows that for a fact.
Mr. James, listen. When he made a comment,
this is the second time he said it.
Hold on.
Second time he said it.
Mr. James. I don't want you or anyone else watching this live to leave here with the wrong idea. I am not here in any capacity to support any party. I am here as an unbiased moderator, and the questions that were asked were brought to you by the CivilNet, Tobago CivilNet, and persons from Facebook, right? You made a comment, and I stopped you with your comment because I thought it was going overboard. Mr. DesVignes made a comment, and I stopped him with his comment because I thought it was going overboard, right? What we do here, ladies and gentlemen, we don't bring that part of politics where persons are the animosity part of it. We come here to speak about issues. We come to be real with each other. We come to educate the public, and that's all we are to do. So if any person comes from any party, while we are having a discussion, and they're trying to lash each other in a way that is not conducive with the program, then as the moderator, I will stop it. Because this is about informing the public. It's just about education, and that's it, right?
Very well. Mr. DesVignes is my friend.
Yes, we just don't want people to get the wrong idea, because it's been streamed live and persons are looking on, and we don't want them to get the wrong idea going away from this. All right. So I thank you all so much once again. We thank you all for coming in. It has indeed been a pleasure. Once again, this has been a production of the Tobago CivilNet, and the questions were put together by the Tobago CivilNet and persons from the Facebook and so on, right? Once again, I just want to advise everybody out there on January the 25th, no matter who you are supporting, please go out and vote. We don't want persons this wrong saying, I go in and vote this and that. We want persons to please exercise your right and go out and vote. This is our last session before the elections, but the conversations will continue after the elections. No matter who wins, we're going to continue the conversations, because we have realized how beneficial it has been to the general public, persons who have been listening and looking on based on the comments and the feedback that we have been getting. And we think that it is something that can aid in educating the public in a very unbiased manner. So once again, Mr. DesVignes, thank you. Once again, Mr. James, thank you. Once again, Mrs. Roberts-Beard, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you to the Tobago Civil Net and all stakeholders involved. And we ask that you share the live and keep locked on for other episodes after the election. And we hope, win, draw, or loss, that we can always invite you all back to have conversations with us, because your opinions are always welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
Okay, bye.